Welcome back to channel. I am Isaac. Tonight, we are not discussing a rumor. We are not chasing headlines. We are examining a question that has quietly shaped the destiny of millions. What is happening to Karachi, and what does it mean for Pakistan's future? Karachi is not just another city. It is Pakistan's largest metropolitan center. It is home to an estimated 35 to 40 million people. It hosts the country's largest port operations, financial institutions, manufacturing zones, and trading hubs. By most economic estimates, Karachi contributes a dominant share to the national revenue and an overwhelming portion of Sindh's provincial revenue. And yet, for decades, many stakeholders argue that the city has been undercounted, underrepresented, and underfunded. This is not an emotional statement. It is an administrative and structural debate. Over the last 70-plus years, Karachi's population has grown exponentially. Migration from every province, every language group, and every socio-economic class has transformed it into what many describe as Pakistan's only truly national city. But with that growth came strain on infrastructure, governance, utilities, law enforcement, and public services. The core issue is not whether Karachi is important. That is undisputed. The core issue is whether its governance model matches its scale. Recently, a high-level conference was organized to discuss Karachi's future. Political leaders, administrators, economists, journalists, and diplomats attended. The tone of the discussion was urgent. The message was clear: enough is enough. But what exactly does that mean? Let us step back. During the early 2000s, under the local government framework introduced during the tenure of Pervez Musharraf, local bodies were granted expanded administrative authority. Karachi reportedly received significant development funds during that period. Several infrastructure projects, water supply extensions, roads, fire stations, and municipal upgrades were initiated or completed. Supporters of that model argue that empowered local governments deliver faster results. Critics argue that centralized oversight ensures accountability and uniformity. The debate, therefore, is not new. Water is perhaps the most visible example. Karachi's water demand far exceeds supply. Projects such as KI, K2, and K3 were implemented over different periods. The long-delayed K4 project, designed to significantly increase water supply, has faced funding shifts, jurisdictional transfers, and construction delays. Federal agencies, provincial departments, and technical bodies have all been involved at different stages. For residents, however, the technical details matter less than the daily reality: tankers, shortages, and unequal distribution. Mass transit is another example. Karachi's population density requires high-capacity public transportation systems. Proposals for light rail, underground transit, and bus corridors were drafted years ago. Some corridors were reportedly near approval. Yet final sovereign guarantees and federal clearances did not materialize at the time. Or recently, bus rapid transit systems have been launched under provincial initiatives. However, urban planners argue that a megacity of Karachi's scale requires integrated, multimodal transit, not isolated corridors. Fire safety presents another layer of concern. The tragic 2012 Baldia factory fire exposed severe enforcement failures. Exit routes were blocked. Safety inspections were inadequate. The event forced national introspection. Yet questions persist about how strictly building codes and industrial safety regulations are monitored today. In early 2026, another commercial building fire reignited debate over preparedness. Reports highlighted issues such as water availability at stations and power supply interruptions. Article 140A of Pakistan's constitution mandates the establishment of local governments with political, administrative, and financial responsibility. Legal experts argue that interpretation and implementation of this article remain contested. How much autonomy should local governments truly have? Should megacities operate under special constitutional frameworks? Different proposals have emerged over the years. Some advocate for greater federal oversight of Karachi, citing its national economic importance. Others propose administrative restructuring within Sindh. Some suggest creating new provinces. Others argue for strengthening existing provincial authority while ensuring fair financial transfers. Each option carries political sensitivities. Let us consider representation. Karachi's population estimates vary significantly depending on census methodologies. Political representation in provincial and national assemblies depends on officially recorded population figures. If stakeholders believe population is undercounted, they argue representation and resource allocation become skewed. Census credibility, therefore, becomes central to the debate. Now let us examine the economic argument. Industrial zones such as Karachi cite Port Qasim's downstream areas and Pakistan Steel's industrial clusters cover thousands of acres. These estates generate manufacturing output, exports, customs duties, and employment. But economic generation does not automatically translate into municipal reinvestment. Revenue collection mechanisms in Pakistan are largely centralized at the federal level. Provincial distribution formulas determine transfers. Municipal governments often rely on limited local taxation powers. This creates a structural imbalance. The city generates wealth. The city depends on allocations. The emotional dimension of the debate emerges here. Many Karachi residents feel disconnected from decision-making. They argue that the reins of the city are not in the hands of its people. This sentiment is echoed across political lines, though proposed solutions differ sharply. Yet, it is important to remain balanced. Since provincial government maintains that it has invested heavily in infrastructure, public transport, and social services in Karachi, federal authorities highlight national-level funding support for mega projects. Cantonment boards argue they operate under separate federal laws. In other words, every layer claims contribution. So where's the gap? Urban governance experts suggest that megacities require unified metropolitan authorities with clear lines of responsibility, transparent budgeting, and integrated planning. Fragmentation leads to inefficiency. Karachi's drainage crises during monsoon seasons reveal this. Stormwater drains fall under one authority, solid waste management under another, roadworks under a third. When heavy rainfall strikes, the system's weakest link determines the outcome. The issue is not simply funding. It is coordination. Now let us discuss law and order. Karachi has historically faced security challenges. Over the past decade, targeted operations significantly reduced violence indicators. Business confidence improved. However, governance debates remain separate from security stabilization. Security alone does not guarantee civic functionality. Education, healthcare, zoning enforcement, public parks, heritage preservation, these are municipal responsibilities requiring sustained planning. Consider Jinnah Road, formerly Bunder Road, built during British colonial administration in 1915. At the time, it was criticized for being excessively wide. The engineer defended it, arguing that a port-bound artery must anticipate future growth. Today, encroachments, congestion, and infrastructure tell a different story. Urban decay does not happen overnight. It happens through gradual neglect. Let us return to the political conference that reignited this debate. Speakers framed their appeal as an SOS call not merely for Karachi, but for Pakistan. The argument is straightforward. If the country's economic engine weakens, the national structure suffers. However, critics caution against alarmist framing. They argue that urban challenges are common across megacities globally, from Mumbai to Lagos, and require systematic reform, not political confrontation. So, what might reform look like? First, transparent fiscal mapping. How much revenue originates in Karachi? How much returns through federal and provincial transfers? What percentage funds municipal services directly? Second, empowered metropolitan planning. Clear authority. Clear accountability. No overlapping jurisdictions. Third, census credibility and data transparency. Urban planning cannot function without accurate population data. Fourth, enforcement of safety regulations. Industrial inspections. Fire compliance. Building code implementation. Fifth, long-term water and transport integration. Water augmentation without distribution reform creates bottlenecks. Transit corridors without network integration limit impact. These are administrative, not ideological, solutions. The larger question remains, will political consensus emerge? Karachi's diversity makes consensus complex. Ethnic representation, party competition, provincial autonomy concerns all intersect here. Yet history shows that cities thrive when governance aligns with scale. As we conclude, let us separate rhetoric from reality. Karachi is not collapsing, but it is strained. It is not voiceless, but many residents feel unheard. It is not abandoned, but coordination failures are visible. The debate over Karachi's future is ultimately a debate over governance reform in Pakistan's largest urban center. It requires data over slogans, institutions over personalities, systems over speeches. Because without structural clarity, no amount of funding guarantees delivery. Karachi remains Pakistan's financial hub. Its ports connect the country to global trade. Its industries fuel exports. Its banks process transactions nationwide. The city's story is not just one of grievance. It is one of resilience. But resilience should not be mistaken for infinite tolerance. The future of Karachi will not be decided in a single conference. It will be shaped by legislation, budgetary formulas, census transparency, and administrative courage. And perhaps the most important shift must be this, from political blame to institutional reform. Because in the end, Karachi is not a party issue. It is a governance issue. And governance, when done right, does not require an SOS. It requires structure. This investigation does not end here. It begins here.